Hey everyone, welcome back. I know, it's been 4 months. Life got a little louder than the shop for a while, and honestly, this project just sat here collecting dust. But finally, we're back. If you remember where we left off, I had just stripped this Trek Skye down to the bare frame. It's been a skeleton in the corner of the shop for way too long, but today, the rebuild finally starts. First things first, we need to clean this dusty, dirty mess of a frame. I'll use my favorite, Dawn Power Wash. Hey, people over at Dawn, I would love to have a sponsorship. A soft brush and a somewhat clean rag make quick work of removing the filth. Now we'll prep the bottom bracket. More Dawn Power Wash and a good flossing with that rag. It's time for the heart of the pedal stroke, the bottom bracket. This one spins freely and is in excellent shape. We'll start things out by installing the non-dry side cup with my bottom bracket tool. I'll first apply a generous amount of grease to the threads and screw on the bottom bracket cup. I'll get it most of the way in and will adjust the cup after the cartridge has been installed. It's now time for the drive side. I'll first apply a generous amount of grease to the threads. Next, I'll use my bottom bracket tool and screw the cartridge all the way in. Lastly, we'll tighten down the non-drive side nice and snug, and make sure the drive side is snug as well. With the bottom bracket installed, it's time to install the crank arms. I'll start with the drive side. It's as simple as sliding the crank arm over the spindle, inserting the crank arm bolt, and screwing it down nice and tight. I'll repeat the same process on the non-drive side.
Oops.
Lastly, we can give the crank arms a spin. Look at them go! Let's move to the rear of the bike. It's time to install the rear derailleur. I'll first apply a small amount of grease to the threads. Next, I'll install the derailleur by turning the bolt that holds it in place. Lastly, I'll manually move the derailleur to make sure it has its full range of motion. Let's move back to the center of the bike and install the front derailleur. It's important to make sure the front derailleur is properly aligned. The cage needs to be parallel with the chain rings, and the cage needs to nearly miss the large chain ring when extended. Here I am adjusting the height so the cage just misses the big chain ring. With both derailleurs installed, it's time to install the chain. I'm reusing the chain that came with the bike. It cleaned up nicely and only had small areas of surface rust. After threading the chain past the rear cogs and through the rear derailleur, I used a quick link to attach the chain. In my opinion, this is the easiest and best way to reconnect a chain. Once connected, we can give the crank arms a turn and watch the rear wheel spin. Let's move to the front of the bike and install the headset, fork, and stem. I'll start by packing the headset bearings with a generous amount of grease. With enough grease, the bearings will stay in place while we insert the fork. This can sometimes be a somewhat difficult task to wrestle the fork through the headset tube and attach the stem. You'll see here I had a clumsy time placing the spacers on the steerer tube. After the awkwardness, I was able to slide the stem in place and tighten the top cap, which compresses everything and sets the preload on the bearings. Yes, off camera I realize I didn't tighten the stem bolts, but rest assured I tightened them. After a bit of cleanup to remove some excess grease, it's time to install the new controls. Last year I bought a bunch of these 7x3 shifters and brake levers before the tariffs kicked in. I'm still going through them and it saved me a bundle. I'll slide the rear shifter over the handlebars and use one of the grips to make sure I have everything aligned properly. Once tightened down, I'll test the shifters and make sure the cable is fully extended. It's time to make this bike shift again. The cable housings were in good shape, so I'll be reusing those. To make sure the shifting is nice and smooth, I'll be putting some Tri-Flow lubricant directly into the housings. Next, I'll insert the shift cable and route things towards the rear of the bike. At the rear of the bike, we lube the last bit of housing before we insert the cable and route it through the rear derailleur. With the housing lubed and the cable routed through the derailleur, it's time to attach the cable to the anchor bolt. I'll pull the cable taut and tighten it down. Now it's time to test. There must have been some slack in the cable and we need to tighten it again. I'll also adjust the cable tension by turning the barrel adjuster. I can feel the tension by grabbing the cable like this. Something's still not right. The chain doesn't want to climb all the way on top of the last cog. I believe I may have to adjust the limit screw. There are two limit screws, one labeled H for high gear and one labeled L for low gear. I want to adjust the low gear limit screw. There we go. Let's test again. That's much better now. Let's move back to the front of the bike and install the front shifter and brake lever. I'll use the same trick with the grip to align the controls correctly. After tightening them down, I realize the reflector will be in the way. With a few turns of my screwdriver, the reflector has been removed. Let's get the front shifter working. Same story here. Reuse and lube the existing cable housing. Thread the cable through the housing and route it towards the front derailleur. At the front derailleur, I route the cable from underneath, over the arm and attach it to its anchor bolt. This cable routing on this one is a bit different than I'm used to, but in the end, we have the cable routed and attached to its anchor bolt. Time to test. Shifting is good. It's finally a nice day, so we're working outside. Both wheels are straight and true. I'll give each wheel a bath in the truing stand, and I'll meet you inside to work on the brakes. At the rear of the bike, I'll apply a coating of grease to the brake bosses. Next, I'll install the brake arms. Once those are in place, I can secure them with their bolts. I make sure they're both on nice and snug. Now let's install the rear wheels so that we can make sure the brake pads are aligned correctly. A quick turn of the crank arms has the wheel spinning. Now I can manually move the brake arm and test the alignment. We're good. Again, we'll use some tri-flow and lube the existing cable housing. Next, I'll install a new brake cable and thread it through the cable housing and route things towards the rear of the bike. At the rear, I thread the cable through the noodle and attach it to its brake arm. Next, I slide the cable through the other brake arm and attach the cable to its anchor bolt. With the cable attached, it's time to test the brakes. I give the wheels a good spin, and boom! There we have it, stopping power. Onto the front brakes. First, I install a new brake cable to the brake lever. Next, I lube the existing cable housing and thread the cable through. Now down at the front brakes, we thread the cable through the noodle, attach it to the brake arm, and route the cable through the other brake arm. We squeeze the brake arms together and secure the anchor bolt. Time to test. Something's not right. The brake pads are rubbing. Oh, there it is. The wheel isn't seated correctly in the dropouts. After some adjustments, the brakes are working as expected. Here we are outside to finish this build. I'll use isopropyl alcohol to slide the grips on. I pour some inside the grip, shake it around, and pour what's left on the handlebars where I want the grips to go. I repeat this process for the other side, and we get a good look at the completed project. If you made it this far, you're a true champion. If you enjoyed this video, hit that like button and subscribe for more bicycle mechanic videos.